My name is Bernice Hale and I am 60 years old. My fiancé canceled our wedding via group chat to find himself. He didn't realize I already sold his Corvette. I stood in the bridal boutique, the $12,000 silk gown hugging my curves. At 60 years old, I felt like a queen, finally finding love again after so much loss. My phone pinged on the velvet stool. It was a message in the group chat titled The Big Day, which included our families and closest friends. My fiancé, Leo, had written something that made the world stop spinning. Hey everyone, wedding's off, the text read. I need to find myself in Tulum. Bernice, don't call me. I just need some space to breathe. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I looked at the screen, unable to move or speak. The bridal consultant stepped closer, her face full of worry as she asked if I was okay. I couldn't answer. I just watched the screen as Leo's young mistress liked the message. If this story of betrayal hits home, please subscribe to hear how I fought back. The silence in the boutique was broken by a second notification. It was an Instagram alert. The mistress, a 19-year-old influencer named Tiffany, had just posted a story. She was at the airport, grinning widely while leaning against Leo's shoulder. The caption read, "Soulmates don't wait for I do. Sorry to the ex." She looked so young, so smug, and so heartless. Leo was smiling back at her, looking like a man who didn't have a care in the world. He didn't look like a man who had just broken a woman's heart in front of all her friends. My hands began to shake as I zoomed in on the background of their photo. I realized the airport they were standing at was private. Leo didn't have that kind of money on his own. Then it clicked. He had used my own corporate jet membership to fly his mistress to Mexico. The betrayal was deeper than I ever imagined. I am the CEO of a major tech firm, and Leo isn't just a runaway groom, he is the son of my biggest business rival. Our wedding was supposed to be a massive deal that merged two empires together. It was meant to bring peace and profit to everyone involved. Now, because of his very public and messy breakup on social media, my company's stock was plummeting. The investors were panicking, and the news outlets were already calling me the jilted CEO. My phone started ringing off the hook with calls from my office. I finally answered, and the voice of my board of directors sounded cold and sharp. "Bernice, this is a disaster," they said. "The markets are reacting to the instability. You have 48 hours to fix this mess and prove you are still in control, or you are out as CEO." I stared at my reflection in the mirror, the white silk now looking like a shroud. I sat down on the floor of the boutique, my mind racing back to 6 months ago. Back then, Leo seemed perfect. He was charming, attentive, and always knew exactly what to say to make me feel special. He used to pin me against the desk in my office, whispering about how we would rule the entire tech industry together as a power couple. He made me feel young again, and the chemistry between us was electric. I thought I had finally found a partner who understood my ambition and my heart. Looking back now, I see the cracks I chose to ignore. Every sweet word was a calculated move in a game I didn't know we were playing. I remembered a specific night last month when he acted so worried about our future. He asked me to put his vintage Corvette in my name, claiming it was just for tax purposes before the merger. I trusted him completely. I drove straight home and walked into the quiet garage. There it was. His 1967 Stingray Corvette, painted a deep, glossy red. It was his baby, the only thing he truly loved more than himself. He spent every weekend polishing it and talking about its history. It was worth at least $250,000, and now, thanks to his own greed, it legally belonged to me. I opened the door and sat in the leather seat, smelling the old wood and gasoline. I reached into the glove box to find the registration papers, but my hand hit something else instead. It was a crumpled receipt from a high-end jeweler. My heart sank as I read the total, $50,000 for a diamond necklace. I checked the date. It was purchased 2 weeks ago. I knew for a fact that he hadn't given me a necklace. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He was spending my money on her long before today. Would you wait or take action? Subscribe now. That evening, I sat in my dark living room and opened Instagram. Tiffany was going live from a luxury resort in Tulum. The ocean was sparkling behind her, and she was wearing the exact diamond necklace from the receipt. She was laughing, tossing her hair, and showing off the jewelry to thousands of followers. Leo walked into the frame, holding 2 drinks. He looked into the camera and laughed when someone asked about me in the comments. "The Ice Queen," he said, mocking the nickname the press gave me. "She's fine. She's probably sitting at home counting her money. I'm just glad I finally escaped the contractual marriage. It was like being in a boardroom 24 hours a day. He leaned in closer to Tiffany and grinned. At least I got the car in the breakup. That's the only part of her life I actually wanted to keep. He had no idea I was watching every single word he said. I didn't cry. Tears are for people who still have hope, and I was far past that. I felt a cold, hard stone of anger settle in my chest. I opened my laptop and went to a high-end luxury auction site that I used for business assets. I uploaded the photos of the 1967 Stingray and the digital title that bore my name. I didn't care about the money, I cared about the message. I set the buy it now price to exactly $1. It was a legal sale, and since the car was mine, I could do whatever I wanted with it. I hit the publish button and watched the screen. The car sold in exactly 45 seconds. I checked the buyer's information and smiled for the first time that day. The buyer was a man who had been Leo's biggest rival since high school. He was someone who hated Leo even more than I did at that moment. The group chat had been silent since Leo's initial message, but I knew everyone was waiting for my reaction. Leo probably expected me to beg him to come home or to scream at him in private. He hadn't checked his email yet because he was too busy enjoying the sun and his new girlfriend. I pulled up the chat on my phone. My heart was steady now. I typed a short, simple reply to the group. Best of luck, Leo. I truly hope the space you found is worth the price you are about to pay. I put my phone down and took a deep breath. I knew the storm was coming, and I was ready for it. Within minutes, the notifications started pouring in. People were confused and shocked. Then, the first real explosion happened. His mother, my future mother-in-law, started calling my phone over and over. I finally answered just to hear the panic in her voice. How dare you embarrass our family like this? Sylvia shrieked into the phone before I could even say hello. Leo is just having a moment. He's under a lot of pressure with the wedding and the merger. You are a grown woman, Bernice. You should know better than to react this way. You will apologize to him immediately and wait for him to come home. Her voice was full of venom and entitlement. She didn't care that her son had cheated or humiliated me. She only cared about the money and the status our marriage would bring to her failing household. I leaned back in my chair and listened to her breathlessly demand that I fix things. Sylvia, I said, my voice as cold as ice. Leo isn't the only one finding himself today. I've been doing some finding of my own. I found his mistress's payroll records, and you should be very worried about what happens next. I spent the rest of the night digging through the joint wedding fund I had set up. I had trusted Leo to manage the smaller payments for the caterers and the flowers. As I looked at the bank statements, the truth became clear. Leo had been paying Tiffany as a consultant through our wedding account for months. He had stolen over $100,000 of my personal money to pay for her rent, her clothes, and even her lip fillers. Every time I thought he was working late on our merger, he was actually using my hard-earned cash to fund a secret life with a teenager. But that wasn't the worst part. I found a series of encrypted emails on his old laptop that he left behind. He had been taking screenshots of my company's private financial projections and sending them to his father. He wasn't just a cheater, he was a corporate spy who had been gutting my company from the inside. The next morning, I walked into the board meeting with my head held high. The room was thick with tension, and the directors looked at me like I was a sinking ship. Bernice, we've seen the news, the lead director began. The public thinks you were played. They want you to step down to save the company's image. I didn't flinch. I opened my briefcase and pulled out the evidence of Leo's corporate espionage. I showed them the emails where he sent our trade secrets to his father, our biggest competitor. I showed them the stolen funds and the fake consultant contracts. The room went silent. I explained that the public breakup was a distraction to hide his theft. One board member leaned forward, his face still skeptical. That's a personal betrayal, Bernice, but it's not enough. He's already tanked our reputation and our stock price. We need more than just a sad story to keep you in the CEO chair. Just as I left the boardroom, my phone buzzed with a direct message. It was from Tiffany. Hey hun, Leo says you're stalking our social media, she wrote. Just stop. We're happy and you're just making yourself look old and desperate. Move on. She even included a photo of them laughing on a boat. My blood boiled, but I kept my composure. I didn't reply with an insult. Instead, I took a photo of the sold title for the Corvette, showing the buyer's name and the $1 price tag. I sent it to her with a short note. Tell Leo he needs to call a cab from the airport when he lands. His ride has a new owner. I blocked her immediately after. I knew that in a few minutes, the peace they were enjoying in Tulum was going to vanish. If you want to see a snake get crushed, hit subscribe right now for the next part. In Tulum, the sun was likely setting when Leo finally checked his notifications. My phone began to vibrate so hard it nearly fell off the table. It was Leo, calling me over and over. When I finally answered, the Zen seeker I saw on the livestream was gone. He was screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "What did you do, Benice? That car is my life. My father and I spent years on that Stingray. You can't sell it for $1. That's theft." His voice was cracking with pure desperation. I sat in my quiet office, listening to his meltdown with a calm smile. "It wasn't your car, Leo," I reminded him. "It wasn't my name, remember? You put it there for tax purposes. And since you broke our engagement contract via group chat, I decided to liquidate my assets. Consider it a convenience fee for my jet." Leo tried to change his tone, moving from anger to a manipulative softness. "Benice, honey, I was just overwhelmed. I didn't mean those things. We didn't sign the final marriage papers, so we can still talk this out. You're being emotional." I laughed, and it was a cold, sharp sound. "I'm not being emotional, Leo. I'm being a businesswoman. You seem to forget the lifestyle clause in our engagement contract." He went silent. When we first got engaged, I made him sign a document stating that if either party caused a public scandal that harmed the other's professional reputation, there would be massive financial penalties. He had thought it was just a formality to impress my board. "By ending our wedding in a public group chat while flaunting a mistress, you triggered the clause," I said. "You don't just lose the car. You owe me your entire share of the startup capital we merged." The silence on the other end of the line was the most beautiful thing I had heard all year. I didn't stop there. "I've also sent you a little gift," I continued. "Check your email." I had sent him a formal invoice for every single penny spent on the wedding cancellations. I included the $50,000 non-refundable catering deposit, the $30,000 for the imported flowers, and the $100,000 for the exclusive venue. I also added the $100,000 he had stolen for Tiffany's consulting. I told him he had 7 days to pay before I filed a formal lawsuit. "And don't worry about telling your father," I added. I already BCC'd his office on the entire bill. I'm sure he'll love seeing how his spy handled the mission. I hung up before he could beg. The weight in my chest was finally starting to lift, replaced by a sharp, focused energy. My next call was to the private jet charter company. I spoke to the manager and used my primary account security code. "The members currently on the aircraft in Mexico are unauthorized," I told them. "I am reporting the jet as being used for fraudulent travel. Ground the flight and cancel their return leg immediately." The manager apologized and confirmed that Leo and Tiffany would be denied boarding for their flight home. They were now stranded at a small regional airport in Tulum with no way back to the States on my dime. I knew they didn't have much cash on them. Leo always relied on my credit cards for everything. I could almost see them standing on the hot tarmac, surrounded by their designer luggage, being told by the pilot that they were no longer welcome on the plane. They were being kicked off in front of other wealthy socialites. An hour later, Leo's father, Marcus, called me. His voice was like grinding stones. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Benice, you've made your point. You've embarrassed my son and messed with my family's property. Give Leo the car back, cancel that ridiculous invoice, and I'll stop the hostile takeover of your company." My heart skipped a beat. A hostile takeover? I checked my terminal and saw a massive surge in selling. Marcus's firm was buying up every share of my company that hit the market. I realized then that the breakup wasn't just Leo being a fool. It was a coordinated plan. They wanted to tank my stock price so Marcus could buy the company for pennies on the dollar. Leo was never finding himself. He was a sacrificial lamb sent to ruin me so his father could own my life's work. The betrayal was a business strategy. I stayed up all night, hired a private investigator, and contacted a hacker friend I had known since my early tech days. By 3 a.m., I had what I needed. Tiffany wasn't just some random girl Leo met at a club. She was a struggling actress from Los Angeles. My hacker friend found a digital contract in Marcus's private trash folder. It was an agreement between Marcus and Tiffany. He was paying her a monthly salary to seduce Leo and lure him away from the wedding at the most damaging moment possible. Marcus knew his son was weak and easily distracted by a pretty face. He used his own son as a weapon to destroy my marriage and my company at the same time. Leo thought he was a player, but he was just a puppet being moved by his father's greedy hands. This wasn't just a breakup anymore. It was war. I decided to play a very dangerous game. I sent a copy of that secret contract directly to Leo's phone. I knew Leo actually thought he loved Tiffany. He truly believed they were soulmates who had found each other against all odds. I waited 10 minutes, then I sent a message. She's on your father's payroll, Leo.
Check the dates.
He hired her 2 months before you randomly met her.
You aren't a romantic hero.
You're just a line item in your dad's budget. I could see the bubbles appearing and disappearing as he tried to type a response. The soulmates were currently trapped together in a hotel room with no flight home and no money, and now they had the ultimate reason to turn on each other. I could almost hear the screaming match starting from across the ocean. The double betrayal was finally out in the open. A few hours later, my phone buzzed with a video file.
It was from Leo.
The video was shaky and recorded in secret. It showed Tiffany in their hotel room, pacing back and forth while talking on the phone. She didn't know Leo was recording her. "Marcus, you need to send more money now," she was saying into the phone. "Leo is a loser, and he's starting to get suspicious. I'm just here for the check, but I can't stay stranded in Mexico with this idiot. Get me a commercial flight or I'm telling the press everything." Leo's voice came on the recording at the end, sounding broken and small. "Benice, I messed up," he whispered into the microphone. "I didn't know. Please, help me get home.
I'll tell the board everything.
I'll testify against my father. Just don't leave me here." He was finally broken. I stared at the video of Tiffany's confession, feeling a cold sense of triumph. I didn't feel sorry for Leo. He had still chosen to leave me at the altar for a girl he thought was a trophy. However, he was now a useful tool. I typed back a message, making my voice sound soft and forgiving.
"Oh, Leo.
I knew you were better than this," I wrote. "I knew your father was the real monster behind all of this. Come home, and we can fix everything together." He replied instantly, practically sobbing through the text, thanking me for being so magnanimous. He truly believed I was the same pathetic woman who would take him back after such a public shaming. He didn't realize that every word he sent me from that moment on was being recorded and backed up for my board of directors. I was building a cage for him, and he was walking right into it. The day Leo landed back in the States, there was no red carpet or vintage Corvette waiting for him. He stepped out of the terminal looking haggard, his designer clothes wrinkled and his face pale. He scanned the crowd, likely hoping to see my face or a driver holding a sign with his name. Instead, a tall man in a plain suit stepped forward. Leo smiled, probably thinking I had sent a bodyguard to fetch him.
"Are you Leo Brooks?" the man asked.
Leo nodded eagerly, reaching for his suitcase.
The man didn't take the bag.
Instead, he handed Leo a thick stack of legal papers. "You've been served," the man said loudly. It was a lawsuit for $5 million in damages, including corporate espionage, theft of funds, and breach of contract. Leo stood frozen at the gate, the papers shaking in his hand as travelers walked around him, whispering about his fall from grace. I didn't wait for the courts to move slowly. I had a company to save. I leaked the video of Tiffany's phone call with Marcus to the biggest tech news outlet in the country. The headline exploded within the hour. Tech giant hires actress to ruin son's marriage and steal rival company. The story detailed the entire plot, from the fake mistress to the attempted hostile takeover. The public sympathy shifted instantly from the jilted bride to the brilliant CEO who outsmarted a snake. The market responded with a massive surge of support for my firm. Meanwhile, Marcus's company began to bleed. His investors were horrified by the lack of ethics and the sheer messiness of his personal life. His stock crashed harder than mine ever had. By the afternoon, his board of directors was holding an emergency meeting to discuss his removal. Justice was starting to feel like a very warm sun. Late that night, I heard a pounding on my front door. I checked the security camera and saw Leo. He looked desperate, his hair a mess and his eyes bloodshot. I opened the door just enough to see him. He tried to push his way in, using that old charm he thought still worked on me. "Benice, please," he begged, his hands sliding up my arms just like they used to. "Let's just have one night together for old time's sake. We can make the lawsuit go away. I can help you take down my father. You know you still love me." I let him lean in, let him think he had won me over with his touch. Then, I stepped back and pointed to the small camera hidden in the hallway.
"I'm glad you said that, Leo.
You just admitted to the conspiracy on a live stream to my entire board of directors.
Goodbye."
The grand reckoning began with what I called the heartbreak auction. I didn't want anything in my house that reminded me of the man who tried to ruin me. I organized a massive public event at a local gallery. I put everything Leo had left behind under the hammer. His expensive gold watches, his custom designer suits, and his rare, vintage bourbon collection were all lined up for the highest bidder. The room was packed with people who wanted a piece of the drama. I stood on the stage, wearing a sharp black suit, looking every bit the powerful woman I was. Every time an item sold, I announced the total. Sold for $10,000.
I shouted.
The crowd cheered as I dropped the gavel. I made it very clear that every single penny from the auction was going directly to Women in Tech scholarships. If you love seeing a queen take her throne back, hit subscribe. The highlight of the auction wasn't the watches or the suits, it was the appearance of the 1967 Stingray Corvette. The new owner, a man named Silas, arrived to collect his prize. Silas was a professional driver and had been Leo's biggest rival on the racing circuit for over a decade. Leo had always bragged that Silas would never get his hands on such a perfect machine. As Silas took the keys from me, he shook my hand firmly. "You have no idea how long I've waited to see him lose this," he whispered. He didn't just take the car and hide it away in a garage. He made sure to drive it past Leo's father's office building every single morning at the exact time the executives arrived for work. The roar of the engine was a daily reminder to the Brooks family that they had lost their most prized possession for the price of a single candy bar. While Leo was losing his dignity, I was moving in on his father's empire. With the evidence of corporate espionage I had gathered, I went to the regulatory commissions. I triggered a bad actor clause that existed in our original merger framework. This clause stated that if one party engaged in criminal activity against the other, the victim had the right to a forced buyout. Because Marcus had used my company's secrets and hired an actress to tank my stock, I now had the legal right to buy out his family's shares at only 10% of their actual market value. I walked into their headquarters with a team of lawyers and a check that was insultingly small. I wasn't just the bride who got left behind anymore, I was the new majority owner of his family's legacy. I looked Marcus in the eye and realized I was no longer the bride, I was the boss. Tiffany, realizing that Marcus was never going to pay her the rest of her consulting fee, decided to protect herself. She went on a famous national talk show to give a tell-all interview about the entire scandal. She didn't hold anything back. She described how Marcus had coached her on how to seduce Leo and how Leo had fallen for it within 24 hours. She laughed as she told a host about Leo's various performance issues and his secret habit of using expensive pills to keep up with his party lifestyle. She portrayed him as a weak, spoiled little boy who couldn't handle a real woman like me. By the time the interview was over, Leo's reputation was officially incinerated. He wasn't seen as a playboy or a romantic seeker anymore. He was the laughingstock of the entire country, a man who had been outplayed by his father and his mistress. Leo had been hiding out in a luxury penthouse that his father owned in the city. He thought he could stay there until the dust settled, living off the remaining family perks. What he didn't know was that as part of my hostile takeover of his father's assets, I had acquired that building along with the rest of the real estate portfolio. I didn't send a lawyer this time. I walked to the penthouse myself, accompanied by 2 security guards. When Leo opened the door in his bathrobe, looking confused and messy, I didn't say a word. I simply handed him the eviction notice. "You have 1 hour to pack a single bag," I told him. He tried to argue, pointing out that his father owned the unit. I smiled and showed him the new deed with my signature on it. "Actually, I own it now. And I don't allow squatters in my buildings." The original wedding venue, a massive estate with gardens and a ballroom, had already been paid for in full. Most people expected me to cancel it and try to get a partial refund. Instead, I decided to use the space for something much better. I didn't cancel the date. I turned the wedding into a grand independence gala for my newly expanded company. I invited all the investors, the press, and the board members. It was a night of celebration, music, and power. To make the evening even more satisfying, I made sure a certain guest was present. I found out that Leo's mother, Sylvia, was desperate for money after their family stock crashed to zero. I hired the catering company she was now working for and requested her specifically. I watched as my former mother-in-law had to serve champagne to the woman she once called old and desperate. During the party, I remembered the $50,000 diamond necklace Leo had bought for Tiffany with my money. I had recovered it from her during the legal settlement, as it was purchased with stolen funds. I didn't want to wear it, and I didn't want to sell it back to the jeweler. I took the sparkling diamonds to a local smith and watched as he melted down the gold setting into a puddle of liquid. I didn't want the beauty, I wanted the utility. I had the stones reset into a heavy, durable leather collar for my new rescue dog, a large Doberman I named Justice. Now, every time the dog ran through the mud or barked at a stranger, $50,000 worth of Leo's betrayal jingled against his fur. It was a constant reminder that something meant to hurt me had been turned into something loyal and protective. The diamonds looked much better on a faithful dog than on a lying mistress. As the gala reached its peak, I pulled out my phone for one last task. The group chat The Big Day was still active, though no one had dared to speak in weeks. I took a high-resolution photo of the final merger documents that showed I now officially owned the Brooks family company. I posted the photo into the chat for everyone to see. "I want to thank you all for being part of this journey," I typed. "And a special thanks to Leo. Thanks for finding yourself in Tulum, Leo. Because of your journey, I found all of your family's assets. I hope the beach was worth the bankruptcy." I watched as the scene icons appeared one by one. I waited just long enough to see Leo's name pop up at the bottom of the list before I deleted the entire chat forever. The silence that followed was the most peaceful moment of my entire life. A few weeks later, a news report surfaced showing Leo's absolute rock bottom. He was found by police sleeping in a cramped rental car in a grocery store parking lot. He had tried to sue me to get the Corvette back, claiming the $1 sale was unconscionable and illegal. He walked into the courtroom with a cheap suit and a desperate look in his eyes. However, the luck he once relied on had completely run out. When the judge walked in, Leo's face turned white. It turned out the judge was the mother of a young woman Leo had cheated on and humiliated years ago, long before he met me. She didn't offer him a single ounce of mercy. She laughed him out of the courtroom, ruling that the sale was perfectly legal and that his own actions had led to his ruin. He left the building with nothing but his shame and a pile of legal fees. The final blow to the Brooks name came from Marcus himself. To avoid a lengthy jail sentence for corporate espionage and tax fraud, he was forced to enter a plea deal. Part of that deal required him to issue a formal, public apology to me on national television. I sat in my office and watched the screen as the man who tried to steal my company was forced to read a script. He looked old, broken, and defeated as he admitted to hiring Tiffany and trying to ruin my reputation. "I am deeply sorry to Benice for my unethical actions," he muttered, his voice shaking. The news anchor then turned to a live feed of me for a response. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a polite nod. I looked directly into the camera and rejected the apology live on air. "Some debts can't be paid with words, Marcus," I said. "They are paid with consequences." Life moved on, and I moved with it. A few months later, I was seen out at a high-end charity event with a new man on my arm. It was Silas, the professional driver who had bought the Corvette. He was taller, richer, and he actually respected the empire I had built. We were featured on the cover of a major business magazine as the new power couple of the tech world. The photo showed us laughing together near the red Stingray. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Leo saw the magazine while sitting in a Starbucks, trying to use their free Wi-Fi to look for a job. He apparently had a complete breakdown right there in the store, screaming about how that life should have been his. He was finally seeing that the world didn't stop for him. He was just a footnote in my success story, a lesson I learned on my way to the top. Leo tried one last desperate move to get money from me. He sent an anonymous email threatening to leak private photos he had taken of me during our relationship. He thought he could still scare me or use my body to get a payout. He forgot that I am a tech CEO who employs the best cybersecurity experts in the world. Within 20 minutes, my team had tracked the source of the email back to his cheap prepaid phone. I didn't call the police this time, I handled it myself. I wiped his entire cloud storage, deleting every file he had ever saved. In place of the photos he tried to use for blackmail, I replaced every single image in his gallery with pictures of sad circus clowns. When he opened his phone to find his leverage, he found nothing but a joke. I sent him a final text, "I'm a tech genius, Leo. Did you really think you could win?" The fall of the Brooks family was complete when Sylvia, Leo's mother, showed up at my headquarters. She wasn't there to scream or demand an apology this time. She sat in the lobby for 4 hours, waiting for a moment of my time. When I finally let her into my office, she looked like a shadow of her former self. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by a faded dress and a look of pure desperation. She literally begged me for a job. She told me they were starving and that Marcus was going to prison, leaving them with nothing. I looked at her and remembered how she had told me to apologize and wait for her cheating son. I didn't turn her away. I offered her a job cleaning the toilets and maintenance areas of my new building. She took the job immediately because she had no other choice. Justice has a way of coming full circle. One evening, Silas drove me to the outskirts of the city. He pulled over and handed me the keys to the 1967 Stingray. "I've had my fun with it," he said with a smile. "But this car belongs to a winner. It belongs to you." I took the keys, feeling the weight of the metal in my hand. I didn't go home. I drove the car straight to the county jail where Marcus was being booked for his final sentencing on tax fraud charges. I sat in the idling car right outside the gates, the engine roaring loudly in the quiet night. When the transport bus pulled in, I saw Marcus looking out the window. I revved the engine one last time, making sure he saw the glossy red paint of the car his son had lost. I wanted him to see exactly what his greed had cost his family. I drove away into the night, feeling lighter than I had in years. To truly close the chapter, I booked a trip. I didn't go with a partner or a friend. I went to Tulum on a solo retreat, staying at the same resort where Leo and Tiffany had flaunted their betrayal. I sat on the same balcony where they had recorded their smug live streams. I looked out at the turquoise water and realized that I didn't feel any anger anymore. I felt nothing but peace. I pulled out a postcard from the hotel desk and wrote a short note to the homeless shelter where Leo was rumored to be staying. "I'm here in Tulum," I wrote. "I finally found myself. You were nowhere to be found, and that's the best part of the view." I mailed it with a smile. I wasn't the ice queen they had mocked. I was a woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to protect it from anyone. Now, I stand on the balcony of my new corporate empire, looking out at the city skyline. My company is more successful than ever, and my heart is full of a quiet, steady strength. I look at my phone and see the big day group chat icon one last time before I hit the final delete button. The past is gone, and the people who tried to destroy me are now just distant memories. Leo wanted to find himself, and in the end, he did. He found out that he was absolutely nothing without me. He was a shadow that disappeared the moment I stepped into the light. I am Bernice, I am 60 years old, and I have never been more powerful. My life is my own again, and I earned every bit of this victory. If you enjoyed seeing a woman get her power back, thank you for listening. Hit subscribe for more stories of justice. Thank you. Please like, share and subscribe for more. Also turn on your notification bell so you be the first to get our next shocking revenge story.